Well, let's take some time to bring it on as we look at the questions that you've submitted online. Pat, this first one is from Michael, who says, is it okay for a church group to attend happy hour every other Wednesday at a lounge or bar as to bring people to salvation while they also engage in drinking? The pastor is aware of this, it's out in the open, and they encourage people from the church to invite their unsaved friends to come to happy hour. Is this right? I'm very confused and wonder if I should look for another church.
Michael, if you see the example of Jesus, he went where they were. They said he was a companion of drunkards. He was a wine bibber. He went where people were drinking wine, where they were having banquets. As a matter of fact, he changed water into wine at a wedding. I think, why not go out where people are? They're looking for love, and they're looking for understanding, and if you can bring the knowledge of Jesus to them, the fact that they're having a cocktail along with it is not going to diminish the gospel message. So I think it's good, but if you feel it's a sin, then don't do it. But other than that, I think it's intelligent evangelism.
What do you think about, there are people who, there's also the scripture that talks about not being a stumbling block to someone. If you're in a place where people are drinking, if they have a drinking issue and you're drinking right along with them, does that
Well, he
dilute?
didn't say they were drinking.
Yeah, he did.
You go to happy hour, you don't have to drink, you can have club soda.
But he says they engage in drinking while they're doing
Well,
this.
somebody does, but he didn't say he did. But I found that in one case, in my brother's case. He was belonging to a church in Atlanta, and the pastor came to this young adults group, and they were all drinking, and all they mostly all needed salvation, and they didn't have it. And the preacher came in. I remember him saying, he was such an eloquent, handsome guy, and he said, I'll have a scotch and soda. That was like putting the primature of the church upon that cocktail hour. That's not good. That's not what I think our friend is talking about.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, this is Kyle, who says, I've read the Bible and numerous Old Testament scriptures and tried to find clear answers about the soon coming, quote, abomination of desolation. I've yet to find any crystal clear answers about this subject. The Lord told us to look out for certain signs so we aren't caught off guard. Can you explain what Jesus and the Old Testament prophets meant by this phrase and how it relates to the end times and Jesus' second coming?
All right, well, the first thing you've got to understand is that he was talking in two instances. He was talking about the destruction of Jerusalem, and then he was talking about the end of the age. And he primarily was talking about the people living in Jerusalem. And he said, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, and I understand that the Romans sacrificed a pig on the Temple Mount, and they also put up a statue of Jupiter, I think it was, right there on the Temple Mount. Now that's an abomination. Was that it? But he said, when you see that, then get out of town because your city's going to get sacked. And that's exactly what happened. So I think that's where you need to put that, is in the context of the destruction of Jerusalem.
Of the fact
the destruction of Jerusalem. And, but other than that, there's not much discussion of it. Daniel talked about it, and then Jesus referred to what Daniel had said, and that's it. He said, when you see what was described by Daniel, the prophet, then flee. That's what he said. Get out of Jerusalem. That's what it says. Okay.
Okay, this is Sidine, who says, if God is really good, then why doesn't he help the poor and homeless people, and why doesn't he reveal himself to the ones who don't believe in him?
Well, I'll answer the second part of that first. He reveals himself every day. You look at the sunset, you look at the sun coming up in the morning, you see the seasons, you see the bounty of the earth, you see the beauty of God's nature, you see the magnificence of the stars at night, you see it all. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows forth his handiwork. Day after day after day, they're announcing the presence of God. And all you have to do is open your eyes and look at it. All right, that's number one. The second part of that question is, why are people poor? Well, people are poor because of oppression, bad government, and war. They're poor because of drinking. They're and immoral
lack of
lifestyle.
education, or lack of education.
Well, lack of
sometimes.
education, certainly. But a lot of this is caused, if people understand God's principles and they begin to be diligent in performing God's principles, they will get out of poverty. What they used to say, that in order to be out of poverty, you need to go to school, get a high school degree, get married, stay married, and you pretty much are assured you're going to be out of these things. But why doesn't God just reach in and give? This is the mentality of people have got to give us stuff. Regardless of what lifestyle, we may be drinking, we may be having drugs, we may have broken up our family, we may have had children out of wedlock, we may have, caused wars to take place, whatever. But why didn't God just reach in and the government give us something? Well, God says, look, I've given you a world, I've given you an earth, and they get out there and till the soil, and 6 days you shall labor and get out and do your job. And if people will do this, there will be freedom of hunger. I've seen poverty in overseas. We do everything we can to help the poor, the needy. And I think God's people should do that. But at the same time, I've seen corruption overseas, especially in Africa. I've seen leaders stealing from the people. I've seen them raping and pillaging the country that they were supposed to cherish. You go on and on and on. But in any event, why didn't God stop all that? Well, He's not going to force everybody to do what He wants them to do. The time will come when He will.
Okay, this is Christy, who says, I've been in an intimate relationship for 15 years. My fiance and I were on crack cocaine and other drugs for years. God freed us from all drugs, and we remained a couple. We've given our life back to God, and we are attending church regularly and plan to get married at the end of this month. I've tried over and over to stop being intimate with him because it is a sin, but it's been very hard on him. Is it fair after all these years to make him wait? I love the Lord, and even though my dedication to Christ has been very recent, I still believe it's important for us to wait until we're married.
Well, let me tell you, you've only got a month. I mean, anybody can be abstinent for a month.
Yeah, you've had 15 years, and now take a month, take a break.
I don't know. It's almost as like you have a common law marriage.
I was going to say that is a common law marriage, isn't it? After
it really
7
is.
years, what is it?
We can have discussion as to what you should do, that you don't have a preacher blessed, or you haven't had a license at a courthouse, but you really have been committed to one another for 15 years. And but at the same time, if you feel this is wrong, then wait, and then get married. You've only got 30 days, so take cold showers.
Separately.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Well, that's all the time we have for questions today.